Hello, my name is Mrs. Lee. I am one of the current Year 6 teachers, and I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the Year 6 trip to Rossigwall. I have been lucky enough to be able to go on this trip quite a number of times, and I hope I can share some of the really wonderful things about this centre and this week away for the children. We're very sorry that we can't invite you to come in and have this talk presented to you in the hall. But we will be taking you through the information that we would normally share, and obviously if you would like to contact any of us to ask any further questions, please do so. So this year's trip is booked to run from Sunday the 3rd of October until Saturday the 9th of October. So why do we go to Rhos? So the main reason for us going to Rossigwall is obviously to experience the outdoors and the adventurous activities outdoors. One of the things which we all absolutely love about going to this centre in particular is that we really do use the natural environment around the centre for all of the activities. So when we go climbing, we don't go on a climbing wall. We go out and we climb on rock faces. So we sometimes go to the beach to climb, and we sometimes go up into the mountains to climb. But we're not using anything artificial. We're out there in the real world. When we go canoeing, we go on to the beautiful Bala Lake that you can see there. So nothing is sort of artificial or created, and it really is just such a wonderful, beautiful landscape to experience and enjoy these activities in. Part of the national curriculum PE programme of study is that pupils should be taught to take part in outdoor and adventurous activity challenges. So this is the main focus of our trip. We do also use our experiences on the trip to relate to some of the other parts of the national curriculum, including some links to science and to English and to geography. We go because we think that it really develops teamwork and it helps all the children to bond as a year group. For the last few years, we have been able to go as a whole year group. So previously there wasn't space for us to do that, but now there is. And this means that when we organise the groups, we can actually make cross-class groups. And your child will stay in the same group for the whole week. So that really helps that group to bond and get to know each other and how they can work together. We base those groups on friendships. So we ask the children to let us know who they would like to be in a group with, and we do our very best to make sure that they have got several friends within their group. Obviously, there might be children also in that group that they don't know quite so well, but by the end of the week, the group becomes a real tight-knit unit and works really beautifully together. And then there's plenty of downtime also in the centre where the groups can mix and get to know each other as an entire year group. We also go to build self-reliance and organisational skills, which I hope lots of you would notice when the children return home. We often hear parents tell us how they really feel that their child grew up a little bit during this week away. So during the week, they are responsible for looking after their own equipment and making sure they've got what they need for all the activities. They're also responsible for doing some jobs around the centre, which you can see there. So they have different duties every morning to do. When we return the equipment, they have to clean their boots and things like that, and obviously look after the equipment that they've been given. And they also make their lunch every day. So if you're currently making your lunch for your child, then perhaps after they've been to Rhos, you could see if they can make it for themselves. And this links beautifully to our secrets of success, and we do talk about this all through the week. So every day we talk a little bit about how the day went and about the things we noticed about the way that the children have been working together. And we reward the children with points on Dojo, and we talk about what we've seen and sort of challenge them to think about how they can continue to work towards these secrets of success. And we really celebrate what they achieve all through the week. We're picked up by a local coach company, local to the centre itself, so they know the roads around the centre really, really well. They come and collect us from school at around 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. We have a stop for lunch in a service station somewhere around Birmingham, just north of Birmingham normally, where we will have packed lunch and obviously use the toilets before we head on to the centre, arriving at around 3 p.m. The centre is in a small village, the small village of Rossigwall, which is just outside the small town of Bala, which is at the end of Bala Lake. So these are some pictures of the centre itself. It's an old school building, so it used to be the village school. And one of the fabulous things about going to Rhos is the fact that we have this whole centre to ourselves. So there are no other visiting groups there whilst we're there. This makes for a really home from home feeling. So we really get a sense of being a big family when we're at Rossigwall for the week. It's a very safe area. All of the building is fenced off around the outside. In fact, it's sort of slightly on a hill, so there's a sort of ditch and a slope at the bottom end of the space, and then there's fences and hedges all around the top, so it's only really the gate where you can come in and out of the property. So it's a real sense of being safe and in sort of a huge house, and the children are allowed to use some of the outdoor space in their free time if they want to play football up on the grass, or go and walk around on the playground area that's out the front. So that's something that we think is really positive. It also means that over the years we've built up a really good relationship with the staff who work at the centre. So it's easy for us to communicate with them before our trip if we have any particular needs with the children that we're taking with us, or if we have any particular requests to do with the activities that they offer us. They're brilliant. We can ask them to do special things for us, and they're very willing to do that. During the week also, the children remain in one group with their friends, but they also have the same leader for the week. So that leader gets to know them really, really well and takes them on all their activities, and really develops a bond of sort of trust and encouragement. And I think that really helps the children. It's a real positive, rather than them moving from one person to another, that they stay with that same person for the whole week. So it's one of the reasons we go so far, is to experience the beautiful environment that we're in, but also for that kind of very special fact that we are there on our own, and it is ours for the whole week. So the picture in the bottom right hand corner is of the cloisters area, which is where the children come and go from their activities, and that's a really useful area because the children can come in there even if they're dripping wet and muddy, and they can take off clothes that need to be dried, or put away equipment, or change their shoes and things like that. So that's an area where we often meet at the beginning and end of activities. And to the right of that picture is the storeroom with all the equipment. To the left is the games room, the boot room, and up the stairs at the back is the drying room. So it's all beautifully set up when we come back from activities to easily take off equipment, get comfortable, and get back into the building. And this is just a little bit more of the outdoor space. So that top picture is just a little bit of a better view there of the kitchen and the dining room in the bottom, and the staff room. And then above that, on the next layer, are some of the dormitories and shower rooms and things. The bottom left-hand picture is of a building called the Bungalow, which, if you have a look at the aerial view, you can see is just across the car park from the main centre. Some of the children will be allocated to sleep in the bungalow during our week. They will have 2 members of staff sleeping in the bungalow with them as well. There are 3 dormitory rooms in there, and a staff room, and they have their own toilets and things in that section, and their own drying room as well, which is the shed just to the left. What we usually do is we usually put children over there who maybe would prefer not to be sleeping in a larger dormitory. So perhaps some of the children who are feeling a little bit more nervous about being away from home and would just like to have a slightly smaller group. There's normally only around 6 children in each of the dormitories there. So that's normally how we decide who sleeps over there. But we will obviously look at who's going on the trip and how we can best spread them across the dormitories. All the dormitories, of course, are single-sex dormitories. In the bottom right-hand picture, you can see a couple of the minibuses. When we are in Wales and we're driving to our activities, we are driven by the centre staff in those minibuses. The fantastic thing about them is they're designed to house children who are dirty, and some of them have even got waterproof seat covers on, so you can come dripping with water out of the gorge and you can just get straight into the minibus and drip water all over the inside of it, and that's absolutely fine. Nobody wants to be trying to get changed by the side of the river. So it's great to be able to get into a nice hot waterproof minibus. So these are some of the sort of indoor spaces where we keep equipment. So in the top picture you can see a space where the children can hang their clothing and also their rucksacks. So all the children are given a rucksack for the week. Obviously they might bring their own rucksack to use on the coach journey up and down, but these rucksacks get chucked about in all sorts of mud and goodness knows what else. So definitely encourage the children to use these ones rather than the nice ones they might have brought with them. So they will use their rucksack pretty much every day because they will be putting spare clothing, waterproofs and lunch and things like that into those bags. As you can see, hanging up there are some waterproof tops and bottoms and some fleeces. In the second picture with all the sort of racks in, that's the drying room, lovely hot room to go and stand in if you've just come back from a cold activity. The children each get a sort of area of that room that they can hang their clothing and things like that out, and it's pretty efficient actually, that drying room. Usually within about 24 hours those clothes are dry. So we do our very best to avoid the children bringing damp, mouldy smelling clothes back to you. We do frequent inspections of their rooms and things. When we say inspections, we can quickly sniff out if there are any damp clothes. So we remind the children that they need to go and hang them up and spread them out so they will actually dry. Another important life skill to learn. And then in the bottom corner you can see the boot room. So this is where they keep their hiking boots. So the centre will provide walking boots for your children, waterproofs and a rucksack. They will also provide a fleece jumper, and they can also provide wellies if needed. The children can bring their own walking boots and waterproofs and wellies if they would like to, but the centre staff will just check that they're suitable, and perhaps if they think that what they can lend to the children is better, they will do. For example, wellies, they need to have a really good grip on the tread because we go and wear those in the Gorge Walk, which is quite slippy. So often children have bought their own wellies and then the centre staff have said, well, might be better if you used ours because they'll be less slippy. Key things to pack. Thick walking socks is really, really important. Every single year, children run out of socks. Every day, they will be wearing either their walking boots or a pair of wellies. So ankle socks or thin socks aren't really too much use, really. We need those thick walking type socks, or football socks, or just socks that are going to come up above the ankle that are not too thin. We can certainly dry them in the drying room, so 3 pairs would be fine, but you do definitely need more than 1 pair of thick walking socks. Plenty of old clothes. Really don't need to be wearing anything brand new or in brilliant condition because you know, they'll get muddy and damp, and it's just important that the children are warm. Lots of layers is recommended. So often when we have our meeting in the morning and the children discuss what they should be putting on, they've been asked to put on a t-shirt and then perhaps 1 fleece layer and then another fleece layer. Sometimes children bring skins and things like that. If they've got that for football or something, they can bring those, or other sorts of thermal layers. So yes, pack those sorts of things if your children own them. That would be brilliant. If they don't, you don't need to buy them, just pack plenty of layers. 2 towels. We ask for 2 towels because there's really a sort of indoor towel that they can use when they have a shower, and then also another towel that they might put round themselves when they come back from an activity and they're wet. And also, if they have 2 towels, it just means that if one of them has got soaking wet and is drying in the drying room, they've still got their other towel if they want to have a shower. A swimming costume. We've never had to go and use the swimming pool, which is our super wet weather activity. We've never done that. I think I've been to Rhos 12 times and we've never gone swimming. But the children wear their swimming costumes underneath their clothes when they go in the Gorge Walk, simply so that when they get back to the centre, they're absolutely dripping wet. They can take off their outer layers and put them to dry, and they've got their swimming costume on underneath. Night clothes are quite important because the children will often wander around the centre in those, so something that they're happy to wear if they need to go down to the toilet, or right at the end of the day when they're coming down for sort of the last good night, they will be wearing their night clothes. So pyjamas or something along those lines is ideal. Toiletries like shampoo, conditioner, deodorant if they use anything like that, and a sheet, a duvet cover and a pillowcase. So when we arrive at the centre, one of the first jobs for the children is to make their beds, which can be quite hilarious. So if your child has never put a duvet into a duvet cover before, it's worth teaching them. They will be the most popular child in the dormitory if they can do it and they can help other people to do it. So there will be a duvet and a pillow on the bed. They just put their sheet on and then their pillowcase and duvet cover. If your child would prefer to sleep in a sleeping bag, that's absolutely fine. In that case, they would just need to bring a sheet, a pillowcase and their sleeping bag. There's a picture of a teddy there because don't worry, if your child has got a teddy, most children bring a teddy to cuddle up to at night. So if your child is thinking this is going to be really embarrassing, no one else will bring teddies, believe me, they definitely will. We always have a little selection of teddies tucked up in each bed, and so please do bring a teddy if your child would like to. Talking about nighttime, every year we do have people that have accidents at night, and we are well used to that, and we just encourage the children to really not be embarrassed if that happens. There is spare bedding at the centre, or you could send spare bedding if your child is prone to wetting the bed. It's really, really useful for us if you let us know if that might be the case for your child, because we can subtly make sure that they're sleeping perhaps close to the door if they are likely to need to get up during the night. And what we just say to the children is just let us know if it's happened, and during breakfast or something like that, we can very quickly and subtly go and strip the bed for them. There is a washing machine in the centre that we can use, and we can sort it out and get it all done without anybody noticing. So I don't think any children are ever aware when this happens, but we do sort it out. What we really don't want the children to do is feel embarrassed and not tell us, and not let us change it for them. So it's really great if you could let us know. Equally, if your child would like to sleep near the door because they would like to have a little bit of light in their room, then these sorts of things, it's really useful to let us know. These are some of the shared indoor areas in the centre. So the old sort of school hall is the common room where we often meet in the morning. So there are some big cushions in there now as well that the children can sit on, and you can see that there's like a big whiteboard there. So we sort of gather, we talk about the weather, the plans for the day, and then we go off into our groups to find out what we're going to be doing each day. The bottom 2 pictures are of the newly extended dining room, and actually now the children have not circular tables like that. We have rectangular tables with benches which fit in really, really nicely into that space, and it's something they've done to allow a little bit more room in that area. So that table that's in the bottom left hand picture is what the tables are like now. That picture in the bottom left, they're just preparing some drinks and things, and you can see there's some sinks behind that the children can use to get water and to get drinks. So at the centre, the food, the centre are used to having children, obviously, and they've tried to provide meals that the children will eat. So there's nothing weird and wonderful that's given out. We have fairly straightforward things such as a roast dinner. We often have pizza one night. We might have a very mild curry, those sorts of things, fish and chips. So it's all things that hopefully your children will enjoy eating. The centre can cater for food allergies and intolerances. In fact, it's quite lucky if you have a food allergy or intolerance, because you often get your own personal pizza or your own personal bowl of lasagna or something like that, which is usually massive. So the children do quite well out of it. They can provide dairy-free and gluten-free. So please let us know if your child has any allergies or intolerances. There's always a vegetarian option. Sometimes the whole meal is vegetarian, but if not, there's always a vegetarian option. And the chicken that is used is halal chicken. We need to let the staff at Rhos know well in advance if we have any of these allergies or intolerances. So it's really important, please, when you complete the form, that you just make sure that you indicate what the dietary requirements are for your child. If it's something like they just don't like cooked ham, or they don't particularly like cheese in a sandwich, they will be choosing what goes in their sandwiches. So that's absolutely fine. They can choose not to put that in. When the food is served up in the evening meal, the way they've done it now is that they kind of serve it up all separately. So for example, if it's pasta with a sauce and vegetables, there'll be a bowl of pasta, a bowl of the sauce, and a bowl of vegetables. And on the table, the children can dish that out themselves. So if your child would like plain pasta and they don't want to put the sauce on top, then they can have plain pasta. We do try and encourage the children to be brave and try everything, but if there's really something they don't like, there is always another option. There's also always fruit available. So there's bananas, apples and oranges usually freely available. And we say to the children, you can help yourself and have as much fruit as you would like. If there's a real disaster one night and your child really doesn't want to eat anything on the menu, then we can always make them some toast or find them something. So we keep your children well fed, and please don't worry, that your child won't have anything to eat, because there is plenty of food there. We just want to ask you to make sure, please, that the information that you send in about your child's diet matches the information that we currently hold for you on Sims, because sometimes what's said on Sims doesn't quite match up with what you tick on the form. So could you just double check that information matches up? So for breakfast, there's always cereal available. There's also toast. There's usually some yogurts that you can pick from if you'd want them. Some mornings we have croissant, and there's always fruit available. So if your child only likes toast, fine, they don't have to obviously have cereal, and vice versa. They can eat as much breakfast as they want, they help themselves. So if they want to have 5 bowls of cereal, they can have 5 bowls of cereal. Lunch they make themselves. It's usually a roll or a wrap, and some of the options that you can put in your sandwich is something like cheese, tuna, cold meat, salad, jam. Sometimes I've seen children that have literally just had a butter sandwich. That's absolutely fine. I've also seen children that have tried to put in every single option and make some sort of very strange Subway sandwich with literally everything in, which is also absolutely fine as long as they're going to eat it. They can also make 2 rolls if they want to, or 2 wraps. So they can, if they're feeling hungry, they can make themselves a couple of sandwiches. They can help themselves to fruit, and there's usually a piece of cake or some sort of biscuit that they can have. This is most days going to be carried around with them. So we ask you please to send in sort of like a Tupperware lunchbox, something that's going to make sure that that roll isn't squashed at the bottom of their bag. And the rolls are fairly decent sized, so not a tiny Tupperware box, but equally not a huge one that's going to have everything shaken around inside it. So it doesn't have to be anything fancy, as long as it's got your child's name on it and it's going to stop things getting squished underneath all that equipment in their rucksack. When we come back for dinner, there's always soup, which is homemade, and it's usually using some of the vegetables from the previous evening with additional vegetables put in. The children are usually very surprised at how much they enjoy this soup, so we encourage them to try it, and a lot of them suddenly realise, oh, I do like vegetable soup after all. We sometimes don't tell them which vegetables are in it until they've tried it, but they often really enjoy the soup. And then, as I said before, there's a meat and or vegetarian option, and then some sort of dessert or fruit. At supper time, we sometimes give a drink of water, squash or hot chocolate, and we sometimes have a biscuit. It sort of depends how the day's gone and what sort of time of day that is and how calm the children are. Sometimes supper works beautifully with some groups, and sometimes supper just gives them a bit of a sugar rush and sends them a bit crazy. So we will see how that goes. The centre is obviously very safe. All of the staff are fully trained in first aid, and we have a member of centre staff on call at all times if we need them to come and give us any type of assistance. When we go out on our activities, we have all of the necessary equipment to keep your child safe, and all of the instructors are trained to a really high standard so that they can carry out those activities safely. Medicines that we can take with us and we can administer to your child. If they need to have medicine on a daily basis, we can administer that for your child. If they need to take medicine out with us, we can take that out and look after it. For example, inhalers or EpiPens we can take with us, obviously, when we go out. Please could you make sure that your information, again, on the form that you hand in matches the information we hold for you on SIMS. So sometimes your child may have previously, for example, had asthma, but has now grown out of it. And it's really, really useful for you to let us know if that is the case. We do ask, if your child does have an inhaler, for them to bring 2 inhalers, just in case one of them becomes damaged. And we normally ask your child to carry 1, and the adult in the group will carry the second inhaler. We can't give your child any medicines unless you've given us permission to do so. So if you think your child might need Calpol or something like that, you do need to send a permission slip to say that you give permission for that to be administered for your child. So these pictures are from the main 2 dormitories in the main centre building, and as you can see there are bunk beds in the dormitories, and we actually have some triple bunk beds now in one of the dormitories. There's usually a little bit of a fight over who's going on the top and who's going on the bottom, and sometimes the children switch round in the middle of the week because they just can't decide. Underneath the bunk beds are wheelie sort of trays where they can put all their clothes, they can unpack, and there are some hooks on the end of their bunk beds for them to hang things on. So the first thing we do when we arrive is settle down and get unpacked and make the beds and kind of find your space in the dormitory. So as we said before, they need to bring that bedding to make their beds and their teddy. They might want a dressing gown to wear around the centre in the evening, and they will need some indoor shoes. Those are shoes that won't be going out on activity, so they won't be getting muddy. I wouldn't recommend slippers. One year I was wearing slippers when the fire alarm went off and my slippers were completely ruined. So I would recommend a pair of shoes. The children are not allowed to walk around the centre just in socks. So shoes are very important, please. They need to bring a plastic bin bag. What we do with this is, as their clothes get dirty, we ask them to put them into this bin bag so that when that comes home, that can just be all taken out and washed. We do make sure, or we try to make sure, that the clothes go into the bin bag dry and not wet. So hopefully you won't get a smelly bin bag, and we will do our very best to avoid that. These are some of the facilities, the shower rooms. They're quite nice and new, those showers. Obviously there are toilets, and there is a games room with a football table and a pool table. So a typical day at Rossigwall. We get up at 7:30. On the first morning, the children get up around 5:30. But as the week goes on, it becomes later and later, and it gets to the point where we have to go in and actually wake them up towards the end of the week. 7:30 is the official wake-up time. They get dressed and they give their dorms a bit of a tidy, and we inspect their dorms just before we go down to breakfast. They have breakfast and then they make their lunch, then they do their duties and have their morning briefing and find out what they're going to be doing for the day. We often don't know what we'll be doing for the day until that morning briefing. So we don't issue you with a timetable for your child, because the centre staff look at the weather and decide what's best to do on that day, rather than setting out exactly what's going to be done every day. Some of the activities are just half-day activities and some of them are full-day activities. So your child might come back to the centre for lunch, but most often we're out till about 4 p.m, which is when we come back from our daily activities. And the children have about an hour and a half to have a shower if they would like to, and just to relax and spend some time with their friends. Dinner is at 5:30 p.m, and after dinner we have an evening activity, sometimes indoors, sometimes outdoors, sometimes something fairly relaxed, perhaps some writing or something like that, and then writing letters home we sometimes do. Sometimes it's a more active activity. And then 9 p.m. we might have supper. We see how the day is going, but we have bedtime. The children are read a story once they've got into bed, and that sort of hopefully sends them off to sleep. Fingers crossed. So some of the typical morning duties are sweeping up, filling up the drinks, hoovering, emptying the bins, taking the recycling out, and that sort of thing. We also have the weather duty, so a group every day finds out what the weather's going to be and does a little presentation on the weather for the rest of the groups. Just going to very briefly talk about some of the activities we do. So the first activity that we do is a night walk. This is on the very first evening that we arrive. A really exciting and fun activity, going up onto the hill behind the centre in the dark. And we often switch our lights off and look at the stars and listen to how quiet it is in Wales. That's our first activity. Some of the children are quite surprised that we're walking up a hill and that it's steep and it gets them out of breath. But they all love lying up there at the top and looking up at the stars. Another activity is climbing. Sometimes we climb up in the mountains, which you can see in 3 of those pictures there, and we do fairly traditional climbing with ropes and do some abseiling and some rock scrambling. And sometimes we go to the beach, which is often just as challenging, but sometimes on a lower level. So we might do sort of going round corners and climbing sideways along the rocks, but closer to the ground. So we don't always have ropes on those, and we have various challenges, such as running up a slightly sloped and slippy rock, seeing if you can cross a gap using just your hands and having your hands and feet touching both sides of the gap, and that sort of thing. As you can see, the children are always wearing a helmet when we do our climbing activity. We also go into a Victorian slate mine. This is often an activity that the children are a little bit nervous about because it's going into the dark, but it's a really exciting full day experience and something that you wouldn't really experience if you didn't go to somewhere like Rhos. It's not a cave, it is a man-made slate mine, and you can see that we look at some of the equipment that the Victorian miners left behind, and we explore the chambers which are semi-flooded. We usually go on a boat across a submerged cavern, and sometimes we climb up waterfalls and things inside the slate mine. We also eat our lunch by candlelight, like the miners would have done back in Victorian times, and as long as the children are happy to do so, we usually turn off all the lights and blow out the candles, and notice how there is absolutely no light at all inside the slate mine. You can't see anything, even your hand waving in front of your face, which is quite a unique experience. We go on a mountain walk. Can't guarantee the weather will be quite as beautiful as it is in these photographs, but we keep our fingers crossed. This is a really adventurous activity for the children. It's usually quite a challenge for them, something that they feel really proud of when they've achieved. The staff often feel quite proud as well that they've managed to get to the top of the mountains. So another really good example of kind of teamwork, pushing yourself forward and keeping on going, and then achieving that sort of summit at the top and standing there in the wind is just such an amazing feeling, and the children thoroughly enjoy it. One of the most independent activities for the children is the hill trail. So they set off either from the centre to reach the lake, or from the lake to reach the centre. We go through how to use an Ordnance Survey map and what all the symbols on that map mean, which links beautifully to our geography curriculum. And we help the children initially and make sure they're happy with reading the map and using the compass, and then we set them off to go off on their own. They are observed from a distance, so if they do go off course, they can quickly be brought back into the right course. And they have an emergency mobile phone with them just in case they really do get lost or panic that they need us. They also carry a shelter, which we found quite funny last time we went. This was my group and Mrs. Sutton's group in that picture, who it was a little bit damp at lunchtime, so they decided that they would put their shelters up to eat their lunch. So we sort of joked that this was one of the best group photos that we had all week, because they were all looking so happy. Gorge Walk, this is usually most children's favourite activity. They absolutely love the Gorge Walk. So basically it is walking up a river, inside the river, sticking your head under waterfalls, floating around in the water, sliding down things, crawling under things. It is absolutely freezing cold, but it is absolutely brilliant fun. So a real favourite with a lot of the children. Canoeing on the beautiful Bala Lake. Sometimes it is calm and tranquil, like the picture in the top right, in which case the children often remain in separate canoes. Well, when I say separate, 3 children per canoe, but not rafted together. So in that bottom corner you can see 3 children in the canoe there. We sometimes play games with inflatable balls or racing each other across the lake. If it's really windy, we can raft 2 of the canoes together. So they've got bits of wood and rope that we can lash them together with, and that gives a little bit more stability to the canoes. We can also use that if the children are feeling nervous or less confident about canoeing. And sometimes, if there's a little bit of a breeze, we can even rig up a little bit of a sail between the canoes so we can sort of sail back down the lake. We usually do a bit of canoeing and then land on the other side or on a beach somewhere and build a fire, have some marshmallows or some popcorn before we return back to the beach there. A fairly new activity to us is survival skills. It's another half-day activity, and the children are challenged to build a shelter out of some equipment that they're given, and the shelter needs to be waterproof and for them all to be able to fit into it. So we did test it out by throwing buckets of water at the shelters. Some children wanted to be in the shelters when we threw the buckets of water. I think it depended how confident they were about what they'd constructed. So We will do our very best to communicate with you on a daily basis, and we will use Class Dojo. So we often send sort of text updates about where we are on the trip, and we will try and send you messages in the morning to let you know where your children are going, which group is going where. Obviously, we'll let you know which group your child is in, and we will do our very best at the end of the day to send you some photographs that we've taken during the day. We take lots and lots and lots of photographs, and we usually provide the children with copies of all of those photographs later on in the term. A little bit of a Christmas present often from us to them. We don't send every single photograph to Class Dojo. We just don't have time to do that whilst we're at the centre. So what we try to do each day is take at least one group photograph. So you can see your child's face and hopefully see that they are smiling away. If we get a chance to send more than one photograph, we will, but that's our aim. Please don't worry if it's getting until late at night and a photograph hasn't turned up yet. The Wi-Fi signal in Rossigwall is notoriously dodgy. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's gone. The phone signal is also equally dodgy. I usually have to go and stand right in one particular corner of the common room to even get any signal on my phone. So if you don't hear from us, it's not bad news. It's just that we're busy with the children, or we've got problems with the Wi-Fi, or we're just all fallen asleep in the staff room. But we will do our very best. If anything happens that we need to let you know about, we would of course do that very quickly. So no news is definitely good news and nothing to worry about, but we will do our very best to keep you updated. Please could you make sure that you do not send any medicines with your child in their bag. So anything like Calpol or paracetamol or anything along those lines needs to be given to school staff along with a permission slip for us to administer that medicine. So they mustn't have any medicines in their bag. Also, just to remind you, of course, that we are a nut-free school, and that includes this trip. We do not want the children to bring anything onto the coach or in their bags that contains nuts. It's really, really important that you remember that, please. We also ask children not to bring electronic games devices because, to be honest, they don't really have enough time to play on them, and it's just something else to look after. They're valuable, and we don't really want to be responsible for things getting broken or damaged. We also ask, please, that your child does not bring a mobile phone. We don't encourage your child to communicate with you whilst they're away because we don't really find from past experience that communicating with home really helps a child if they're feeling homesick or anything like that, because it just reminds them of what's going on at home. So we do not allow your child to bring a mobile phone or to communicate with you via message or anything like that when they're away. If they've got a music player that they want to bring, which looks like a mobile phone, as long as it doesn't have any capability of messaging, then that's fine. They can bring that with your permission. We do encourage the children to write to you whilst we're away, so we encourage them to send you a letter. It's good if your child knows your address, maybe brings an envelope with a stamp. And you can obviously send letters to your child if you wish to send them to the centre to arrive. I think those have mixed reactions amongst the children. Sometimes some children absolutely love it, and they really enjoy getting a message from home. And for some children it's really difficult because it reminds them perhaps of what they're missing. So you maybe need to just think of your child and what you think is best for them. We obviously do our very best to look after your child if they're feeling homesick, and there are some children who do feel a little bit homesick at the beginning of the trip. I would usually say it's just for the first night, something new and something different, and we would take care of them as we would our own children. and look after them and comfort them and cheer them up. And to be honest, usually they then get so involved in all the excitement of the week that they do forget you, I'm afraid. So it doesn't last. If we are worried about your child, if they are unhappy, or we feel that it would help us to talk to you, we will give you a ring and we will talk to you, and we will obviously let you know if we think that we need to communicate with you about anything that's happening whilst we're up at the centre. So the final steps, please, is you should be receiving your pack, which has got some forms in for you to fill out. So please, could you fill those forms out carefully, thinking about particularly the medical data and about the food information that you want to give us about what your child can or cannot eat. There is an initial deposit to pay, and I believe that is going live from the 1st of April. So from the 1st of April, you are able to make that payment. Usually after this information evening, we have parents that either ask questions within the group or who wait behind to ask us questions. If there's something really particular about your child that you would like to check with us, perhaps it's a concern about food or about an activity that they might be worried about, or some medical issue that you would really like to talk to us about. If you do have any questions, please contact the office, and one of the Year 6 team, all three of us, Mrs. Ghosh, Miss Kinch and I, have all been to Rossigwall, so one of us can get back to you and answer any queries that you have, either by giving you a call or responding to an email, or perhaps arranging to meet you on the playground for a face-to-face conversation at a social distance, if that would be better. So if you do have a concern, please do contact us, and we're more than happy to talk that through with you. I hope that I've given you a good flavour of what Rossigwall is about, and I hope I've answered some of your questions through this video. I can see it's been quite lengthy, so thank you very much for watching. I'd just like to say it's an absolutely wonderful place, and the children love their time there. They get so much out of it, and usually at the end of the year, when we ask them what was your best bit of Year 6, they say Rossigwall. So we're really excited that we should be able to go back again this year. It was really sad that we didn't manage to make it with the current Year 6, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that we will be able to go with your children and have a wonderful experience. Thank you.